We've finally officially entered the Breach era with our first single, The Contract. And after basically a year of waiting for the continuation of Paladin Strait, we now have our next installment in the story. And in true Pilots fashion, it's as cryptic as ever, with a really catchy beat. As per usual, I'll be giving my thoughts on every new single that drops by the Pilots. I rate The Contract a 9.5 out of 10. In my opinion, the more darker and atmospheric music that combines literally all the lessons learned regarding mastering and music from previous albums gives it just that bit more of an edge than Overcompensate, being arguably the best introductory single they've ever released. Before we get into the video, I would just like to make a quick disclaimer that this is my own interpretation and analysis of the lyrics and music video. I'm in no way stating that my analysis is the only or right one, and encourage you to drop your own interpretations in the comments below. Furthermore, this video does require a bit of background knowledge to be able to understand the lore in the music video. Namely, you need to be up to date on the FPE letters from the UK and EU leg and the storyline so far. Finally, this video will contain sensitive content regarding mental health. If such content is triggering, I recommend clicking off this video. I will place resources in the description. You are not alone and there is help out there. Stay alive. Taking a glance at the lyrics initially, The Contract looks like a very simple song. It essentially only has one verse, mainly being dominated by a mixture of pre-chorus and choruses, with the addition of a bridge and an outro. Not only that, but you could argue it wears its message on its sleeve, being fairly easy to decipher with just a surface level analysis. In a way, it's this era's routines in the night. Short, not a lot of metaphorical language, and incredibly accessible. But when taking a closer look, this initial perception of The Contract begins to falter. As stated in an interview with Zane Lowe during the release of the single, Tyler stated that this period, this album, is the epitome of the concept of breaching trust.
I think that we felt a little like we had just done a misdirection to the fans. We never like to pull the rug out from under them, so intentionally knowing that we wanted to name the following record Breach was kind of this play on we kind of breached their trust a bit in a way that actually ties into the story that we're telling as well. So yeah, it felt like it worked, but it is like officially this album.
And I couldn't agree more with him. The presentation of these lyrics are incredibly deceptive. What it lacks with the usual symbolic or cryptic language seen in their previous songs, it makes up for by using its structure to tell the story to us. Firstly, The Contract is very much a song about fearing relapse. The lyrics specifically talk about Tyler fearing that necromancer. In essence, the necromancer is a personification of a relapse. Necromancers are not only associated with resurrecting the dead in pop culture, but were originally known to communicate with the dead. The concept of resurrection of the dead could suggest this necromancer wants to revive dead struggles and issues Tyler believes he has put to rest, just like how a relapse functions. Moreover, the necromancer being outside could be an allusion to routines in the night, wherein the mind is compared to a building. The necromancer being outside of this building implies he is trying to breach the safety of Tyler's mind. We know Tyler fears this necromancer, fears relapse, because he's hiding from him, evident with the lines of, "and I'm just trying to stay quiet, as to stay quiet is not to be found, and where I hide my face," which could be an allusion to the notion of out of sight, out of mind. He doesn't want to be seen by the necromancer, but is also afraid to see him. The lyrics reveal that this fear of relapse is incredibly intense, devolving into paranoia, and this paranoia is directed towards the presence of the necromancer. Regarding lyrics, the usage of the verb pull in Pull the Blinds denotes an exertion of force, showcasing a level of fear. He isn't simply just closing the blinds, he's using force to close them as quickly and harshly as possible. Not only that, but one can pull blinds to open and close them, implying that Tyler is constantly on the lookout for this necromancer, paranoid, both wanting to hide from him, but also see where he is. However, as aforementioned, what truly reveals this paranoia is a plethora of structural methods. Firstly, there's a semantic field of uncertainty throughout the lyrics with wondering, a feeling, maybe, as well as a lot of questions. How'd you know that? Did it change up? Is it light out? Aside from the questions often being repeated, which in itself suggests paranoia, and the question of how'd you know that in itself sounds like the most quintessential suspicious and paranoid question to ever exist, the semantic field of uncertainty presents Tyler as being unsure on what is happening and what is real, constantly doubting his surroundings and himself. Repetition is also used some more in the structure of the lyrics. For example, in the first and only verse, if you look closely, several phrases are repeated. And I find out, did it change up? Wait, did it change up? Better find out, better try to breathe. The repetition of these phrases in a descending order almost depicts the notion that Tyler is doing a double take after believing he was fine, especially exemplified by the use of wait with a caesura. He's constantly checking and scrutinizing everything again, paranoid about the necromancer, doing a double take to check even when he feels fine. There's also the repetition of check in the lyric, I check the doors, check the windows, I check the clock. After all, constantly checking something in itself is a sign of intense paranoia. Finally, the pre-chorus and chorus itself utilizes a lot of plosive k sounds, with check, clock, necromancer, quiet, crazy, keep, contracts, which to me almost mimics the ticking noise of a clock. This creates the feeling that time is running out, adding to that sense of urgency and paranoia. To try and cope with this fear, Tyler isolates himself as a form of coping mechanism, likely to prevent him from encountering anything that could cause a relapse, prevent him from encountering the necromancer. The pre-chorus of I check the doors, check the windows, and pull the blinds in itself shows that Tyler is at home, but also that he's locking himself in, further exemplified with the necromancer being outside of his house. The fact that he wants to get out there, go outside, but doesn't try also adds to this, as well as the fact he only walks around the edge of his room. The edge of his room is the furthest he'll go, but he'll not even leave his room, let alone his home. Furthermore, as pointed out by many avid fans, the pre-chorus itself can also be considered an allusion to the chorus lyrics of Not Today. Tore the curtains down, windows open, now make a sound. The main difference between these lyrics is that the contract seems like an inversion of the lyrics of Not Today, a more negative version. Whereas Not Today is about not staying in your room and struggling with your internal struggles today, not staying in the same room you were born in, the contract inverts this to suggest that Tyler is indeed isolating himself in his room. Unfortunately, this unhealthy coping mechanism of isolating himself and staying in his house to cope with the fear of relapse only yields further negative consequences on his mental health. These negative consequences manifest in two ways. It makes him more anxious, and it also results in sleep deprivation or insomnia. As for anxiety, the structure of the lyrics illustrate Tyler having a panic attack. The sporadic and random usage of enjambments throughout the lyrics often creates small pockets of flowing moments that are interrupted with the lyrics that aren't connected, mimicking the uneven and sporadic breathing seen in panic attacks. This is also seen with the usage of caesura twice in the middle of the lyrics, this constant interruption again throwing off the flow of the lyrics, much akin to the uneven and panicked breathing in panic attacks. Speaking of the first verse, it also uses a lot of sibilants, S sounds, with a repetition of pace. The sibilance in itself creates a hissing sound reminiscent of the loss of air or breath, something bolstered with the lyrics of better try to breathe, implying that Tyler is struggling to breathe. We also have shorter sentences in general within the lyrics, as well as the third pre-chorus actually missing lyrics to make it shorter. These two features of the structure combined create the sense of shortness of breath. And finally, there's the rhyme scheme. Whilst it isn't necessarily consistent throughout the song, they are consistent within their verses. The pre-chorus has an AAAB rhyme scheme, whilst the chorus has an AAB rhyme scheme. However, the first verse has a rhyme scheme that can only really be described as a spiral out of control, starting off consistent and then devolving entirely around the mark where the lyrics talk about pacing, much akin to a spiral in a panic attack. Meanwhile, Insomnia is also illustrated via a lot of structural techniques. The use of repetition as a method in general across the song illustrates a real lack of being able to focus on what he is saying, showing trouble in being able to focus and remember, a common symptom of sleep deprivation. The inconsistent structure of the song itself, starting with the pre-chorus literally only having one verse, bridges, and an outro, also achieves this effect, as it again shows that lack of concentration and composure. Colloquialisms in formal language litter the lyrics. Trying, bet, wanna, further shows a lack of composure, likely due to not having the energy. Similarly, the monotonous vocals for most of the song again convey this fatigue and sluggishness. Aside from this, we also have the lyrics "Is it light out yet?" after "wake up" in the first verse, implying that it's still dark outside, still nighttime, ultimately suggesting Tyler did not get much sleep. Furthermore, we also have the mention of "my hallucination." Hallucinations are a result of severe sleep deprivation, and it's implied to some degree that Tyler has also been having conversations with his hallucination, as per the conversational structure of the chorus, combined with the vocal effect that creates an artificial quality to his voice, as if to imply the conversation is fake. It isn't real. You could even argue that the necromancer himself, the representation of a relapse, is also a hallucination by Tyler, as necromancers aren't real things, and so seeing one outside is an impossibility. It's implied further in the lyrics that the reason he is now in this position is because former coping mechanisms no longer work or have been taken away from him. The lyric of "promises and contracts I used to keep" reminds me of the chorus in Vignette, clinging to promises. In that song, promises were not only used to refer to the promises made by friends and family of assistance, but also the promises that certain unhealthy coping mechanisms would make him feel better. And so, in the contract, this implies that these are coping mechanisms he used to use, but no longer has. Similarly, a contract is a deal between two parties, implying that Tyler also made a deal with his struggles to try and cope. But these are also deals that no longer mean anything, as they no longer help. As mentioned earlier, the song can be considered to have a "not today" reference. The key thing about the message of that song is that the reason why Tyler will not isolate himself in his room is due to the presence of a friend opening the windows and dragging him outside. And since the contract is an inversion of this song, this suggests Tyler doesn't have that company to help him cope. He's on his own. As aforementioned, it seems Tyler has also been using his hallucinations as a form of company to compensate for the lack of actual company, and to cope with the paranoia around him. But lyrics such as "I used to see, it felt so real" suggest that Tyler has become aware those aren't real, and therefore they've lost their comfort. That's not where this song ends though. The structure isn't just inconsistent, it's progressive, documenting Tyler's experience throughout the night. We start off with Insomnia, with Tyler not being able to sleep, and yet in the bridge, before the final pre-chorus, Tyler states that he has finally found sleep. He finally knows how to beat this by himself. The outro details this discovery, specifically that he is making a deal with his internal struggles, mimicking lyrics seen in songs such as "Ode to Sleep" and "Doubt." But now I plead, just take the deal, I promised you a contract. He cannot be talking to anyone else. We've already established he's isolated himself, and any company he has experienced has been hallucinatory. The use of plead not only furthers that desperation to finally get out and be done with it as it means to beg, but begging someone to just take the deal implies that Tyler has made an offer and the terms of this deal are not up for negotiation. The necromancer, Tyler's internal struggles, should just take what Tyler gives them. In the later lyrics, the use of "a contract," not "the contract," furthers this stubbornness Tyler is exhibiting with his internal struggles, that this is not up for discussion. The word a is a determiner, normally used when something is vague or being mentioned for the first time. Meanwhile, the is a grammatical article used for nouns that have already been mentioned or for things the parties are already familiar with. So, the contract is something both Tyler and his struggles would already know, but a contract is something new, not before mentioned, vague. Tyler is not promising his struggles the deal they already know, the deal he no longer keeps, the contract he used to keep before. He's instead telling them that he only ever promised to offer them a deal. He never agreed to offer them the deal they already had going. And so it's better for them to take the new contract he is offering them. Ultimately, the contract is about fearing relapse, using isolation as a coping mechanism, but only suffering with anxiety and sleep deprivation due to it. It's about finally coming to a realization on how to succeed, how to win this time, by offering a new deal to internal struggles. A deal that is not up for debate or discussion, regardless of how outraged one's internal struggles may be at this sudden change. As mentioned in the intro, this music video is a continuation from the events of Paladin Strait. And before I get into the analysis, I have to say this. Gotta give kudos to the pilots for leaving me on the same goddamn cliffhanger we were in a year ago. I was truly not familiar with their gambit. Surprisingly, for the first time in lore history, the music video is fairly simple to explain in premise. As we saw in Paladin, Nico smears Clancy in order to prevent him from rebelling, and the music video finally shows us what smearing actually does. No, Clancy is not being seized. Yes, I know Clancy's eyes have a red hue to them at the very beginning of the music video, but we know that seizing requires the usage of Ned's horns, or at the very least, the indicator of glowing eyes from the bishop. So yes, Nico smears Clancy, and we're then transported into his mindscape with Clancy openly trying to resist, even imagining Josh to help him resist against the demons closing in on him. After all, the contract in itself is meant to parallel what we saw in the Clancy tour concerts, evidenced by the fact that the end of the music video has the exact same scene and music seen in the EU and UK concerts. The Clancy tour in general, according to Tyler, was meant to be a reminder of why we fight. In essence, Clancy is indeed imagining Josh because this is him mentally resisting Nico by reminding himself of why he is fighting in the first place. A lot of symbolic shenanigans go on, which I will go on to explain, and then Clancy opens his eyes to face Nico. Firstly, it looks as though Nico is trying to cause Clancy in the music video to give up by smearing him, and this smearing has some effect on Clancy's mind. Given the theme of this song is about fearing relapse, it very much seems like smearing is meant to be the stand-in for causing a relapse in this universe. This is made especially more prominent when considering that the necromancer could be a reference to Nico, who uses seizing to tangibly raise the dead. Nico is outside of his mind, trying to gain access to break him down. This is also reinforced with a lot of the details we see in the music video. For example, there are links to Backslide, a song also about fearing relapse, through the usage of the leaves seen in the stormy segments of that music video, and the drowning imagery that could relate to the chorus lyrics also being about drowning. Speaking of the weather, we don't just have torrential rain and storms, but also snow and thunder, which could be a reference to the lyrics of Migraine, which compare this pathetic fallacy to internal struggles. There are also a lot of shots where it looks as though Clancy is going around in a cycle, not only just an allusion to trying to cause a relapse by almost showing Clancy his rebellion is futile, but to me, I'm taking this as another point for the cycle theory scoreboard, a theory that dictates that the cycle will restart with Clancy back in the Heavydirtysoul car. More interestingly, however, is that this probably may be the first time we also get Zoroastrian imagery in a music video. For those who do not know, Zoroastrianism is a religion that believes death is a form of pollution, and so they store dead bodies in towers of silence to be eaten by vultures and eventually eroded by the weather. A religious belief that has had clear influence on the story through the architecture and beliefs of each faction. If you want a more in-depth explanation of Zoroastrianism and how it relates to the story, I have this short explainer to clear things up. But yes, Zoroastrianism imagery. In the music video, Clancy and the mental manifestation of Torch are in the center of a circle, surrounded by, when you slow the footage down, what looks like bishops. Since this is Nico smearing Clancy, these manifestations of bishops could potentially be all the dead vessels Nico has possessed over the years, but notably these bishop bodies are placed in the exact same areas the dead would be placed in the Towers of Silence in Zoroastrianism. Combined with the light shining down on them, much like how these towers didn't have roofs and were exposed to the elements, and the fact that Clancy and Torch are in the center where the bones would be broken down, and they are indeed broken down by the weather, given the beliefs of Zoroastrianism assist in vilest practices, this could be a further metaphor for Nico trying to cause a relapse, to break Clancy down and force him to submit to vilism. So, TLDR, both the music video and the lyrics not only tell us Nico is trying to forcefully cause Clancy to relapse so he loses that hope to escape, loses memory of everything good, but the way he tries to force this is through smearing. But it is important to note that Clancy does resist. He resists Nico, as even after everything, even after he's broken down to ashes in his mind, he still appears at the end in his mindscape with Torch. Nico is not the only person he is resisting though. It also seems as though he is resisting the Bandito movement. Not only does he hesitate to take the jacket, but when singing he directs "I promised you a contract" to Torch. The jacket symbolises the Bandito movement and their goals, suggesting Clancy does not subscribe to their rebellion and plan anymore, wishing to deal with this in his own way. Meanwhile, given what we know about the lyrics, Clancy is telling this manifestation of Torchbearer that he only promised to work with him, but not in the exact way that Torch wants him to. After all, we see in the final FPE letter that Clancy has gone rogue. He's diverted not only from the plan, but the goals and core beliefs of the Banditos in general, much to the Torchbearer's displeasure. I have my theories as to why specifically Clancy believes there is a different way to deal with the Dema problem, but I believe these will likely be answered in due time. This is a theory I have talked about before in my vignette analysis, so please do watch that if you want more context. But to sum it up, unreleased songs on the digital remains such as Dragpath, combined with Silver-Weighted Sun, imply that Clancy felt betrayed after discovering that the Banditos did not come to save him during Scaled and Icy, and that the Torchbearer was merely an illusion. He spent that time suffering alone. This sentiment, this feeling of betrayal, seems to have been brought up in the lyrics subtly, from Clancy talking about the hallucination he used to see, being a reference to Torchbearer, to the general themes of isolation, and the stubbornness displayed with the deal not being up for negotiation and him taking the reins to get what he wants. You could even argue, at a stretch, that Clancy himself believes that there is no change between being with the Banditos and being with Nico. The lyrics of "Wake up and I find out, did it change up, wait, did it change up" seem to subtly imply this. This progression of lyrics can be argued to reflect Clancy's own journey. He woke up to the corruption of the bishops and vilism, waking up often being the in-universe way of rebelling as per the monologue at the start of Jumpsuit. And he then did a change-up, and threw the bishops off guard by escaping from the city several times and joining the Banditos, only to then ask if things have actually changed or gotten better, if it did change up, if it has actually gotten light out yet. Unlike the lyrics in the music video, this contract and the stubbornness associated with it are directed at the Torchbearer. Simply put, it seems Clancy does not view the Banditos as reliable, seen in Dema org and lyrics throughout Clancy. He has become a vessel for their movement, a weapon to them, and that's all. They didn't save him. They weren't there for him when he was struggling. They are no different to the bishops, uncaring of him only when they can use him. That is why Tyler has stated that this moment in the record is about breaching trust. The Banditos breached Clancy's trust by using him as a vessel for the rebellion. And so, in turn, Clancy may be potentially breaching their trust by refusing to take the jacket from Torchbearer and basically going, nah, I'ma do my own thing. And that's it for the contract analysis. Knowing my luck, I'm going to upload this video, or I'm going to be working on editing this video, because currently it's June 24th by the time I'm recording this. So I'm probably going to start editing, and then the pilots are going to talk about their next single, and then I'm not going to get a break. We are back to that again, chat. It's time to get to work. I really liked the contract. It reminds me of Linkin Park-esque songs, and it also reminds me of the song Sing to Be by MISSIO. If you haven't heard of Linkin Park or that song that I just mentioned, go check them out. If you like the contract, you'll probably like these songs. But yeah, that's all I've really got to say. I'll give probably more in-depth thoughts about the contract when I do my album review. So I hope you enjoyed watching, and thank you for watching Top Debate.